Alright, welcome back to episode 2 of Marvel Cinematic Universe Rewind. We are here with The Incredible Hulk, the second feature-length Hulk movie. It's not very good. It's not terrible, it's not bad. I'll say right up front, I don't really think there's any bad Marvel movies. They're all worth a watch. My memory is that Thor 2 is probably the closest to being a bad movie. We'll get there when we get there. The Incredible Hulk is a weird one in terms of the Marvel Universe. It's kind of like the redheaded stepchild, the one people like to forget about. It's a strange movie in a lot of ways. So this movie is a Universal picture. At this point, Marvel hadn't become like Disney yet. So Marvel was kind of this sub-company. And I think Paramount produced Iron Man and Iron Man 2. And I want to say Thor as well. But Universal owns Hulk because they did the Hulk, well, the earlier Hulk movie with Ang Lee. And they also did the TV show from the 70s with Bill Bixby. So this is a really weird one when you think about, you know, the overarching series. Just because of who owns it, it's very strange. It's also weird because it's sort of a sequel to the Ang Lee Hulk. There's not really continuity between the two, in as much as the cast is all different, and some of the stuff they addressed in the Ang Lee Hulk isn't, you know, available here. In the Ang Lee Hulk, the angrier the Hulk gets, the bigger he gets, so he can be anywhere from like 8 feet tall to like 40 or something like that. They don't keep that, obviously, but the opening credit sequence for the Incredible Hulk, this one, does kind of have the exact same sequence of events that happen in the Ang Lee Hulk movie. So it's weird. It's a reboot sequel thing that's also setting up a brand new Hulk. Also, it's Edward Norton. It's not Mark Ruffalo. Apparently, Ruffalo was one of the choices. He was on like a very short list for people they wanted to play the Hulk. But the studio wanted to go with Edward Norton. And Norton is one of those things where it's hard to tell if he's the reason why this movie is as good as it is, or if he's the reason why maybe this movie sucks. Not really sure. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out if I need to put more light in here. You know what I am? Pause. I'm going to go fix some lighting. That's better. The screen's probably more washed out with the glare, but hey, you can see my beautiful face. So yeah, Edward Norton is an interesting one. Norton has been known since the 90s for being very, very involved in the movies he makes. So in the case of this one, he wrote a whole draft kind of on his own. He rewrote scenes on a daily basis. He was apparently heavily involved in the post-production and kind of deciding how the tone of the movie should be, how the editing should be. He was involved in the casting process. He was involved in almost directing Liv Tyler, who's playing Betty Ross, and like kind of coming up with a backstory for the two of them together. There were apparently sequences where Edward Norton was directing himself because the director was off on a different unit. This is a very apparently scattered production, shot all over the place, mostly in Canada. And you can kind of tell the climax takes place in New York, and it doesn't really look like New York. It looks like Canada. But yeah, Norton was very, very heavily involved. Some of the stuff he wanted to do was great, just as an idea. Apparently his draft incorporated a lot of references to other superheroes. His draft included a lot of like making the world bigger and just kind of focusing on this one part of it. The story that Mark Ruffalo tells in The Avengers about how he put a bullet in his mouth, swallowed a bullet, and the other guy spit it out. You know, he tried to kill himself, and the Hulk wouldn't let him. That was written and apparently shot. I don't have the special edition DVD or the Blu-ray because it's The Incredible Hulk, so who cares? But apparently that sequence was shot, where Norton goes to like Antarctica and goes to blow his brains out, and there's a big flash of green, and it just can't happen. Also, apparently in that sequence, if you watch the deleted scene, very briefly you can see like a shield in the ice. So the idea is that Norton went to, let's just call him Norton instead of the Hulk. He's not really the Hulk yet. Norton went to Antarctica and like found Captain America. So they were sort of setting up little Easter eggs for Captain America. But it is interesting to know that this one came out the same year as Iron Man, and there's no tag at the end of it. There's no post-credit sequence. There's no, hey, Thor's coming, anything like that. There is some vague dialogue referencing about a super soldier program that was started in World War II, so that's clearly Captain America. But there's no reference to Iron Man. I think if you look up the chronological timeline for events in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this one happens before the events of Iron Man, for whatever reason. The sort of tag, and it's weird, I tried to do some research on it. Apparently it was like a tag in the theaters. If you saw this movie in theaters, it was kind of a mid-credits roll thing, which is, you know, Tony Stark walking into a bar and talking to General Ross about, we're putting together a team. On the home video release, however, it's just the last scene of the movie. That's just what happens, right before the end credits. So, I don't know. It's also unclear as to whether that sequence was shot after Iron Man was going to hit. I've heard rumors that's what happened, is Iron Man made a shit zillion dollars, more than they were expecting, and with the Hulk coming out and kind of testing a little bit poorly, and wanting to continue making more, they decided to add the little sequence at the end with Robert Downey Jr. coming in and doing another little reference to a bigger world. This is also the only Phase 1 Marvel movie without Sam Jackson in it. Yeah, it's a weird little piece in terms of the bigger picture. As a movie itself, as a Hulk movie, it's fine, I guess. I like the Ang Lee one better. At some point I'll probably do a video comparing the two. I really like Ang Lee. I think he's a fucking brilliant filmmaker. The movie's just interesting. It's 2 hours, 15 minutes long, so it's a long, kind of meditative, poetic Hulk movie. But it's interesting. It works, for me anyway. And there's some cool action in it as well. And Nick Nolte's fucking crazy. So it's interesting, if not necessarily good, but it's interesting. The Incredible Hulk isn't really interesting, but it's not bad. It doesn't really swing for the fences, so it kind of just, you know, it is what it is, Hulk movie. The cast are all good. Once again, it continues the tradition of Iron Man casting really interesting character actors. You know, Edward Norton, Liv Tyler, William Hurt, what's his fuck? Tim Roth, back from Reservoir Dogs. My favorite bit of casting in this movie is Tim Blake Nelson, the guy who plays the Mr. Blue, the doctor who's helping him out. That he's just a fucking cool actor. He's currently in Buster Scruggs, the Coen Brothers flick that's on Netflix. If you know him from anything, it's probably going to be from Oh Brother Where Art Thou, the other Coen Brothers movie he was in. Good filmmaker in his own right, too. And he really, when he shows up, the movie kind of gets a much-needed jolt of interesting. He seems to be the one having fun in this movie, as opposed to the rest of the cast, which honestly kind of feels like they're just kind of going along for the ride a little bit. Norton does his best. Norton's a good actor. He's never boring to watch, but this character, by its very nature, and the way they're doing it in this movie is he has to kind of stay restrained, and he's not playing it in kind of a quirky, fun way. There are a couple little moments where, like, he tells Liv Tyler to, I have some breathing exercise can really help you manage that anger, that are kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Mostly he's playing it really, really, like, mellow until the action sequences start, and then it's not him anymore, it's the Hulk. So, I don't know. As far as the Hulk of it all goes, the CGI in this movie is not god-awful, but the Hulk looks really crappy. I think it's more of a design choice than a money thing. He's really sinewy. The first Hulk was just kind of green and smooth, and it was kind of like it looked like an action figure straight out of the box, you know what I mean, crisp and clean. The Hulk in this movie, I guess they tried to design some kind of musculature under the skin, but they made the skin really thin. I don't know, he just looks very sinewy, and you can see the veins in his neck. It's not cool looking, he just looks like leathery and weird. The facial expressions don't really read. I guess there was a bit of motion capture done with Norton, as well as keyframe animation, but it doesn't really read like a performance in any way. Even the quieter moments, it doesn't really read like a performance. I apologize so much about the lighting in this video. I'm going to try one more time to make it brighter in here. The sun went down like right before I started doing this. That's probably the best we're going to get. Anyway, so yeah, Norton's interesting in it. The Hulk, the way he looks isn't very cool, but the stuff he does is interesting. You know, this is the first time, I don't think he spoke in the Ang Lee one. This is the first time we get to hear the Hulk say stuff. He says Hulk smash. The great moment from the trailer is probably the best Hulk moment in the movie, where he like picks up a police car and rips it in half, and he's got like boxing gloves, like half a car on each hand, and he's punching the Abomination. As far as the villain goes, this is the second Marvel movie in a row where the climax is the hero fighting another version of himself. But bigger. That's gonna get old really quick. Tim Roth's good. It's really interesting to watch Tim Roth before he becomes the Abomination. He's just kind of a super soldier. That fight sequence on the camp is probably the best sequence in the movie. And it's interesting to watch like someone who's fast and agile and strong go up against somebody who's bigger than him. And we, eventually got the ultimate version of that when it was Thor versus the Hulk. But it is kind of cool to see, like, the idea is, what if Captain America, minus the shield, fought the Hulk? And that sequence works really well. It's also interesting to note that this is pre-Captain America. I don't think they cast it yet. I'm not even sure they knew they were going to do it yet. So the super soldier, super serum of it all in this movie is a little weird. They have a serum. They give it to Tim Roth. It works. I guess he craves more power, so they give him more serum, and that's when he starts to kind of change, and he gets like a weird spine. And then I guess he's injected with Banner's blood, which makes him the Abomination. But it's very strange that in the movie since we haven't... Shut up, Willow. We haven't seen more... we haven't seen more talk about the serum, the soldier. There's a dog outside my dog is looking at. So yeah, they had a serum, and it just seems like they would have been working towards trying to perfect that serum as opposed to just ignoring it again. But that's the same thing like in Iron Man 1, that excellent bit of technology. It's like a keychain, you open it up and put it to somebody's ear, and like the sonic waves paralyze you. That's an amazing piece of technology. We never see that again either. So some of this stuff you just kind of have to let go. It's interesting to me that Liv Tyler, Betty Ross, never comes back in any of the Marvel movies. Instead, the Hulk, when we'll get there, gets a love interest with Black Widow, Natasha. But it's so part of who the Hulk is in the comic books, and I did read Hulk comics a bit before seeing this movie and before seeing the Ang Lee one. It's so part of who Bruce is that he loves that woman. It's very much the King Kong, Beauty and the Beast story. And the fact that she doesn't show up in any other movies is really weird. It's not even like a reference, not even a name drop to it. But General Ross, William Hurt, does show up. He's in not Infinity War. Yes, he's in Infinity War, and he's also in Civil War. So, like, this is very much in the continuity of things. In the Avengers, Mark Ruffalo says, I broke Harlem. So, like, as much as this feels tonally a lot different, and that the casting changed, and the Hulk looks different, and all that stuff, it is very much still part of the canon, part of the continuity of the series, and it's really weird to think of it that way. The other interesting thing for the longevity of this whole thing is the character arcs throughout a series. Tony Stark has the best one. Captain America maybe too. We'll see what happens with Endgame, but Tony's arc is very, very strong in the first movie, and it continues into each successive movie. Honestly, the Hulk's arc in this is interesting. His whole thing is, I don't want to cure, I don't want to control, so I don't want to control it. I don't want to learn to make it a part of me. I want to get rid of it. I don't want to make it okay, make it better. I want to cure this son of a bitch. And part of what happens in this movie is Norton has to throw himself out of a helicopter and choose to be the Hulk, and kind of control it a bit. So much so that one of the best jokes in Thor, Ragnarok, where Mark Ruffalo jumps out of the thing and splats onto a bridge, that joke already happened in this movie, in a different way, but the same kind of thing. Bruce Banner jumps out of a flying thing and crashes into a city as a human before turning into the Hulk. And even the end of the movie kind of shows him opening his eyes, he's meditating, kind of opens his eyes with green eyes and smiles, and the idea being that, like, he's choosing to be the Hulk, That's kind of the point of this arc, of the character's arc in this movie, sort of. It's not done very well, but that seems to be what's going on, is Bruce needs to learn to control this, not get rid of it. Which is basically the same arc that Bruce has in the Avengers. So, yeah, it's a little bit weird on that level. It's also interesting to me that these movies are about trauma. I never really thought about that now, but obviously Iron Man 1's about post-traumatic stress and father shit. This movie is about a guy who is literally, has rage issues, and there are sequences of Bruce, of Norton, like taking a shower, and the shower head turns into a machine gun. He has post-traumatic stress. And we'll talk about it more with Thor and stuff, but he's got crazy father issues, and Captain America's got a bunch of fucking war issues. It's interesting to me that these characters are all broken. Doctor Strange was in a car accident. I had something else to say. What the hell was it? Oh, one of the things I like about this from a writing level, the interesting thing about it, the Hulk is a really tricky character to make a whole movie around. As we've seen with Joss Whedon kind of crack the code, he's better as a small piece. Probably utilized best in Ragnarok as kind of like part of a ensemble team buddy comedy thing, as opposed to being a whole character. Because Bruce Banner is just not all that interesting of a character in an action flick. And by the very nature of these movies, they have to be an action flick. And they keep doing the same thing. Both these movies do the same thing, this one and the original Ang Lee one, which is they do the Jaws thing. We don't see the Hulk for like an hour. And I'm sorry, I don't give a shit about the plot. I want to see the big green monster. But he's also not quite a character, so it's this very tricky thing. They added 2 things in this movie that I liked. They added a wrist thing, like a pulse indicator that Bruce Banner wears. That it's his warning. If his pulse goes too high, he knows he's going to lose control. And that's used for great action sequence, great tension moments. There's some great comedy scenes, like him and Liv Tyler about to bang, and his pulse is going too high. He can't do it. It's going to change. The other thing I like is the days without incident counter that shows up on the screen. When we first meet Bruce Banner in South America, which, by the way, he goes to South America at the end of the Ang Lee one. It's very weird. When we first meet when we first meet Bruce Banner in South America, it says, like, days without incident, 152. So, like, it's been a long time. He's managed to kind of control this for a while. Then, of course, plot, action, he turns into the Hulk. So for the movie, we see this days without incident, 6, 12, whatever. And that's a cool time indicator. It shows you how much time has gone between events when he's traveling from country to country. And B, it lets you know, like, okay, something's coming. Like, we know that he can't go that many days before. The movie's going to give us something soon. So much so that at the end of the movie, when he's meditating in Canada, doing his own thing, the thing says days without incident, like 862 or whatever the fuck it is. And then it goes bzzz and counts down to 0 because he's going to control it this time. So yeah, there's interesting stuff in it. It's not a terrible movie. It's a little bit long, even though it's the shortest Marvel movie. It's an hour 52 minutes, so it is the shortest Marvel movie of all of them. It's a little too long for the story it's got, but it's fine if you're doing the binge like I'm doing, trying to watch them all. I would say give it a watch. It's interesting enough. If you're gonna skip something, I'd recommend probably like Ant-Man or Thor 2. It is interesting enough just to see, like, it's kind of like an Elseworlds parallel universe. Like, this is what we could have gotten, If the movie had made more money, there's a very real chance that they would not have recast him for the Avengers. We would have had an Edward Norton Hulk, which would have been fucking weird, and great. I mean, he's a great actor, but it would have just changed everything. As far as money goes, this movie grossed like $153 million domestically. The Ang Lee Hulk, which came out in 2003, so 5 years previous, grossed like 151. So it outgrossed the previous Hulk movie, but only by like $4 million, and like 5 years later. So yeah, it was not a hit. Hulk movies don't make money. We'll see if they can ever crack the code to give us a full-on Hulk movie that works without having to shoehorn into the characters. Although even in this one, fucking Tony Stark shows up. So, I guess that's all I have to say. This is the first part of Phase 1. This is the first time audiences got a sense of, like, oh, holy shit, Tony Stark's in this movie. Maybe my friend told me something about Nick Fury, like, maybe they are going to try and connect this. And then the next one, Marvel went back to their cash cow and did Iron Man 2, so we'll talk about that next time. And Iron Man 2 has its ups and downs, let's put it that way. We'll get there. Anyway, thanks for watching, and check out The Incredible Hulk, if only to see Edward Norton and Liv Tyler and Tim Blake Nelson do some stuff together. It's fun. Bye!